Annie was the kind of girl that always knew what was trending, always had laughter in her mouth, always had lashes on her eyes like curtains. For some reason, Annie liked Grace. Maybe because Grace was calm. Maybe because Grace never competed. Maybe because Grace looked like a person with a secret. They became close. And one day, Grace told Annie everything. Not every detail, but enough. Annie's eyes widened when she heard. Feet, she repeated, half disgusted, half fascinated. And you drink it? Grace nodded, ashamed. Don't judge me. Annie leaned in. I'm not judging you. I'm just, wow, that's crazy. Grace begged her, please, don't tell anybody. Annie laughed. Me? I'm your friend. I'll die with it. Grace wanted to believe her. She tried to. They sometimes go out. It was a normal girls' outing. Small enjoyment, small pictures, small laughter. Annie came with her other friends, and one of them was Marvin. Marvin was fine, not the noisy Lagos big boy, fine, clean fine, calm fine, the kind of guy that looks like he smells good naturally. He noticed Grace immediately. At first, Grace tried to act like she didn't see him. Her heart did one stupid jump, and she quickly reminded herself, you have rules. But Marvin didn't move like a player. He talked like a normal person. He asked about her course. He listened. He laughed at her jokes. He didn't try to touch her. Grace told herself it was harmless. But harmless things can still pull you into danger. Not long they exchanged contacts. Marvin started texting. Grace replied slowly, cautiously. He kept showing up. He kept being kind in a way that made her feel like she was more than a sacrifice. Annie noticed, and something changed in her eyes. Not big, obvious change. Small. A different look when Marvin greeted Grace, a slight bitterness when Grace smiled, a quiet attitude when Grace's phone buzzed. For Annie, it started feeling like Grace had everything. Money, beauty, peace, now even love. And jealousy is a wicked spirit. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers and plots. Annie started warning Grace. Be careful of Marvin. Oh, these guys, they can pretend. Grace would ask, pretend for what? Annie would shrug. Just be careful. Some men are predators. But when Grace didn't listen, Annie did something Grace didn't see coming. She moved closer to Marvin. She started feeding him information as if she was helping him. You know Grace has never kissed anyone before? Annie said one day, laughing like it was jest. She's always acting like holy girl. Marvin was surprised. Never? Annie nodded. Yes. She's always talking about you though. She seems to like you a lot. Last kissing is sure like this. She said, laughing stylishly. It was a lie, but it was sweet enough to plant ideas. Grace and Marvin kept getting closer. Grace felt like she could breathe around him. One evening, they were alone. Marvin looked at Grace, and Grace didn't look away. He leaned in, and Grace, for once in her life, wanted something for herself. Their lips touched. A kiss. Small, soft, quick, but it was a kiss. The moment it happened, Grace's whole body went cold, like something in the air snapped. She pulled back immediately. Marvin was confused. Grace, what's wrong? Grace stood up, shaking. I can't. Marvin reached for her. Did I offend you? Grace's voice cracked. Please, don't. She left him there and went home like someone running from fire. That night, she prayed until her eyes hurt. But she still told herself one lie to survive her fear. It was just a kiss, a light one. It was even deep. Maybe nothing will happen. She didn't tell Alhaji. She didn't tell John. She didn't tell anybody. Weeks later, the punishment started. It began with a rash around her lips, small bumps, pain, burning. She went to the hospital, embarrassed because the nurses looked at her mouth like they already concluded it was one infection. They gave her drugs, creams, tests. Nothing helped. The rash spread. Her lips cracked. The pain became sharp, like her mouth was being punished for what it did. Grace couldn't hide it anymore. She went to John, crying. John looked at her mouth and his face fell. "Grace, what did you do?" Grace shook, voice small. "I kissed someone." John closed his eyes like he was praying for strength. He took her to Alhaji. When Alhaji saw Grace's mouth, he didn't panic, he didn't shout, he didn't pretend to be surprised. He simply looked at her like a teacher disappointed in a stubborn student. "You broke the rule," he said. Grace knelt down, crying. "Sir, please, it was a mistake." Alhaji's voice stayed calm, almost bored. "You signed it with blood." "Help me," Grace begged. "Please." Alhaji shook his head slowly. "There is nothing to help. You knew better." Grace's heart sank to her stomach. She left the mansion feeling like the world was ending, and this time there was no money that could stop it. Her condition worsened. The rash became sores. The sores became swollen. Her breath started smelling strange no matter how much she brushed. Her body became weak like someone was stealing her strength at night. And people started disappearing from her life. Annie stopped calling. When Grace called Annie, Annie didn't pick. When Annie finally answered, her voice was flat. "I'm busy." Grace wanted to scream because Annie was the one person who knew. Annie was supposed to stand with her, but Annie had already moved on, and her jealousy was already enjoying the chaos. Annie even warned Marvin. "You like your life? Stay away," she told him. Grace is not normal. Marvin panicked. He started avoiding Grace. Grace was alone. So she turned to the people she did everything for. One evening, Grace called Joy into her room. Joy was now mature, in university, speaking like someone that had tasted comfort for years and assumed it was normal. Grace tried to explain gently from the beginning. She told her sister the full story. "Joy, I made a mistake. I broke the rule, and now I'm sick. I need you to stand with me. Help me." Joy stared at her for a long time, then her face hardened in a way Grace didn't expect. "So you did all this and you couldn't control yourself?" Joy said. Grace blinked. "Joy." Joy's voice rose. "Because of a boy? After everything? Do you know what we have now? Do you know what you are about to destroy?" Grace's mouth opened, but no words came. Joy stood up, angry like she was the elder sister. "You should have known better," she said, and walked out. That night, Joy called the brothers abroad. Grace didn't know until her phone started ringing like emergency. The first brother's voice was sharp. "Grace, are you okay? Are you trying to ruin us?" Grace's throat tightened. "I'm sick." "Sick?" He cut in. "Do you know how far we've come? Alhaji is taking care of everything here. Do you want to disgrace us?" The second brother joined, insulting her like she was the enemy. "You have everything and you still couldn't keep simple instruction because of a boy. You're selfish." Selfish. Grace almost laughed, but tears came instead. She held the phone and felt like her soul was leaving her body. Is this what it is after all my suffering? Weeks later, her sickness became worse. She started vomiting blood. Then one morning, she vomited something that looked like worms. Grace screamed. She rushed to the bathroom, shaking, crying like a child. She scrubbed herself until her skin hurt. She went to the hospital again. but they could not explain it. They treated symptoms, they guessed, they tried. Nothing stopped it. As her body deteriorated, her house became quiet in a cruel way. Joy stopped coming home. When she did come, she would stand by the door, nose wrinkled. "This place is smelling," she complained, like Grace was a dirty thing. The brothers stopped calling unless it was to blame her. Grace stopped begging because she finally understood a painful truth. Some people only love you when you are useful. So Grace stayed in her room and cried until her tears finished. Then she stopped crying too. She became quiet. She called her lawyer and together they started writing things down. Accounts, documents, savings, things in their names. Things she had been doing silently for years, putting money aside, investing small, preparing for a future where Alhaji might one day stop. Even as her body failed, her mind still tried to protect her siblings. One night, Grace lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about the first room in Mushin, thinking about the landlord, thinking about Joy running back with slippers in her hand. She realized she had lived like a shield. But shields get broken. And the people behind the shield sometimes don't even say thank you. They just complain when the shield cracks. Grace whispered into the darkness, "God, I've tried." Then she slept. And she didn't wake up. The house didn't feel real after. Joy came back, not because she wanted to sit with Grace, but because death forces everybody to show up. Grace's body looked smaller than her age, like life had reduced her. Joy cried at the burial, but it wasn't the kind of cry that says, "I loved you well." It was the kind that says, "I didn't know it would end like this." The brothers sent money for burial, acting like they did something noble. And Alhaji, he didn't show. He didn't call. His support stopped completely, just like the rule warned. But what the siblings didn't understand was this. Grace had already saved enough. Enough in their names. Enough tied up in places only the lawyer knew. So they didn't fall into hunger again. They didn't suffer the way Grace suffered. Even after she died, she still carried them. That was the tragedy. And the lesson, because years later, when the lawyer brought the will just as Grace had instructed before she passed, Joy sat on the floor and screamed, not because she was shocked at the money, but because she finally saw the full weight of what Grace did. Lands, houses, insurance, savings, estates, all from Grace. For years, Joy held the papers and cried until her eyes swelled. Because it hit her late. Grace didn't live a life. She spent her life. And the people she spent it for didn't even hold her hand when she was dying. That's how the story ends. Not with revenge. Not with justice. But with a quiet warning. If somebody is carrying you, don't wait until they collapse before you respect them. Love is not only what you receive, it's also what you return. And sacrifice without appreciation is a slow funeral while the person is still alive. The moral is simple. Gratitude is not optional, it's a responsibility. And if you're the one always sacrificing, remember this too. Don't destroy yourself to build people who will step over your pain like it's nothing. Share the burden. Set boundaries. Let people learn to carry their own weight. Because sometimes the saddest thing is not poverty. It's dying after giving everything and realizing you gave it to people who only value the gift, not the giver. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe for more epic tales. Also like, share and comment.